get started. All right, now my haere mai, ki tēnei wānanga e purangi. Welcome to the Te Pūtiyaki Manatanga webinar around culturally safe programs, talking about One Museum's experience. Before we get started, I just quickly want to remind you we're recording this session. We're going to share it through the Te Pūtiyaki Manatanga website. And to really get us in the right frame of mind, let's start with karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā tāratara ki tai. Ehi ake ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei Māori ora. Well, once again, welcome. And welcome to our presenter for today, Kirsty Porter from Te Manawa. Kirsty has a background in science and art, and she's got qualifications in both environmental engineering and the fine arts. Even though she says she's not formally trained as a teacher, she has gained a lot of pedagogic experience in education and as artist in residency programs at kindergartens, and also from working alongside colleagues in the museum sector. She's been with Te Manawa Museum for the last 11 years and enjoys the opportunities the three strands of Te Manawa provide for sparking lifelong learning. In her other words, Kirsty has said she's got an art practice and works in community to build artist-run spaces and community gardens. Well, Kirsty is going to come and talk to us about her work in dramatic inquiry and these culturally safe programs. So thank you so much, Kirsty. Thanks for sharing with us today.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the introduction. So I'm Kirsty, and this first slide is really some lovely pictures for us to all look at while I explain what this workshop's about. Because this workshop or this webinar really came about by because I had wanted to display dramatic inquiry to some people, and we were in Waioru some months ago. I had run a little sections of our programs in dramatic inquiry, and there was a lot of interest in that. And we started this process thinking about dramatic inquiry, but actually there was a bigger story about why we ended up having a program using this kind of particular pedagogy. So just to recap, this little webinar is our experience, or my experience, or the experience here at Te Manawa, which is a regional museum here in Papatana and Palmerston North. That we had when the Aotearoa New Zealand Histories curriculum came in, and we suddenly started getting asked by schools if we could tell local stories. So there was, I think really everyone went through this, where we suddenly had to think about what stories we do tell, and we did a little consultation with a lot of people. And we found that some of the stories that we were telling were not actually really stories that we could tell. They were stories that mana whenua, rangatane, didn't think that we should be telling unless we had a rangatane staff member on board. And at that time we did not have a mana whenua educator here, so we didn't have anyone from rangatane here on staff. So we went through some processes, and one of them was to try and get some funding to employ someone. And we managed to get some funding, but finding the right person, or finding a person who could take on a role, was very difficult. I mean, funding usually comes as a chunk, and so you can only do it as, a kind of temporary thing, which was never that attractive. So after some time, we went back to the drawing board and decided that instead of employing a person, we would use that funding to make some resources with rangatane that would be culturally safe for all of our educators to use. So we're a team that's made up of Pākehā and also people from other places, someone from Sri Lanka. At the time we had a woman here who was Dutch, so we had a lot of people who wanted to be able to deliver programs in a culturally safe way that was appropriate for them. So we ended up going out and finding some people that that we could work with. And the end process is that we developed 2 programs, and these pictures are just a little snippet of some of the programs we do and some of the resources that were made. So we ended up with 2 programs. One is around harakeke. So you can see on the slide there our beautiful stand of harakeke, which is planted in our courtyard, so outside of our museum, which is significant to us because it's actually a remnant from the original stand of harakeke that was in Te Manawa too. And an example of some of the resources is some of the line drawing that was given to us as part of our program. On the other, so sneaking up to the other side of the picture, there's a picture that's taken from, a photograph taken from in the museum space of a taha huahua, which is a tangible object in the museum that we use in our programs, but also a drawing which is was part of the resources as well. And in the middle, there is a game for a second program, which was based around Haunui Ananaya, who was a tōhanga, a real person who travelled down the east coast naming, the west coast, sorry, and naming all of the rivers. So those are our 2 programs, harakeke and Haunui Ananaya. So that was the outcome of lots of consultation with, how we're going to deliver some programs. These programs are culturally safe because harakeke is nua, so it was something that we can handle. It's used for everyday use, so it was considered that developing a program around harakeke was safe for everyone to work with. And Haunui Ananaya is a real person, so because we were talking about a real person and not kind of delving into a spiritual world that we were perhaps not safe in, those were the 2 programs that were identified for us to be able to share and gifted to us in this way. So yeah, that's kind of the breakdown of the why, how this happened, the processes that or the problem that we found ourselves in to start with, and the kind of solution that we ended up with. So just go to the next slide. I'll show you the people that we worked with. So we ended up working with two groups of people. So one they're actually a couple, Warren and Virginia, and Viv as well. So we were pretty lucky. We have in our community Warren and Virginia Warbrick, who run a organisation called THEM, Histories of Pāmutana, and they call themselves local history experts. And Warren is Rangatane, and so he has Rangatane stories. He holds the knowledge, and he knew what he could share with us. The other really great thing about those guys is that they both have museum background. So they both worked here at Te Manawa. For many years, Warren was an educator, so he was familiar with how education works, what access to resources we had, just the process of dealing with kids and the limitations of the technical things with children. He could understand that as well. And Virginia had worked in design, so a lot of the resource came from her, so she helped with a lot of design. So that was really the knowledge that was from those two, was the knowledge. That's how we got our stories. And Viv Aikens is a pedagogy expert, basically. So she is a teacher of teachers. She was working at the University of Waikato and has moved down to Palmerston North. But she had been working with teachers, and she'd been developing a dramatic inquiry framework for teachers to use in schools. One of her frustrations was that she often would come up to teachers who wanted to do more but just didn't have the capacity, and she would come in and say, oh, we could tweak this and we can make it really good, but sometimes teachers just don't have that capacity. So for her to work in museums was perfect, because here we were wanting to develop this really finely tuned program that would be repeated over and over again. So it was a really perfect space for her. I've just got a couple of books, actually. She's a wonderful writer of pedagogical teaching. I'm sorry, I'm very far away from my camera because I'm going to do a demonstration soon, but I don't know if you can see that. And it's one of her books. Can you read that enough? Close enough? Oh, I'll tell you what it's called. It's called Real in All the Ways That Matters, and it's weaving learning across the curriculum with mantle of the expert. So mantle of the expert is a pedagogy that we will talk about in a moment. So it's one pedagogy that she works with, mantle of the expert. Another one of her the pedagogy she likes to work with is dramatic inquiry, and I'll just hold this up so you can see what it looks like. It's a book called Try This. So Try This is she calls them keys. So it's just step-by-step instructions on how we can unlock learning through dramatic inquiry. So dramatic inquiry is using the tools of drama to get kids to imagine spaces and imagine worlds. And it's designed not to be overwhelming. We're not asking anyone to get up and perform. It's just using these tools that drama can do to help to unlock ways of imagining it. And it's a really useful tool for people like us who are working in, especially in heritage spaces, I think, to think about the past or to think about the perspective of someone else's world. So to be able to do that, we sometimes need to go into other space, which there's some tools in drama which can help. So they were really, really wonderful tools to be working with. So, yeah, so Liv Atkins and Warren, Virginia are the people that we managed to get to come in to help develop these resources. Yeah, so big ups to them. So, yeah, disclaimer, I'm not an expert on any of this. These guys were the experts and they developed the programs for us. So I was lucky enough to be the recipient of these programs, which I'm the one who's been delivering them along with Danny and some other people as well. So yeah, so if we just go to the next slide. So our programs. So the programs were delivered to us, the final product, after probably 2 years of coming and going and of talking and of, you know, thinking about how things were going to be and working with us. We ended up with a script, which you know, I've got one in my hand. It's just a piece of paper. This one is quite well thumbed because I've used it a lot, but I put an example of the script on the side. So we have 2 scripts, 2 programs. The first program's actually been split into 2 now. So there is potentially 3, but it can be run as 2. But it's actually 2 programs. One is Harakiki, which has another program, Te Hairanga, training game. And the other one is the Haunui Ananaia. As I mentioned before, we saw the pictures. So these scripts come in episodes, so you can start to see the kind of language of drama that's coming through. There's an episode, and each episode has a purpose, it has a title, and it comes with a script. And as you can see on the screen, there are it's very detailed, which has been really useful for people to for me to teach new people how to use it. So I've just listed the different episodes down on the left-hand side of that slide. And you can see the first one, the Pa Harakiki. I just thought it might be quite useful or quite, for me to go through a couple of those scenes. So in a moment, I'm going to get up and start enacting those scenes from the scripts. But just in brackets, I've put the particular pedagogies which come up inside of those episodes. So I'll just go through those before I start the episode. So the first one is the Pa Harakiki. And in here we have two pedagogies. So we have voices. So you'll see on the left-hand side under strategy, it says strategy on the left-hand side, storyteller voice, and then you have educator and role. So we spend a lot of time thinking about what these voices mean, but it's relatively intuitive. So, you know, you can imagine a storyteller's voice. There's a pink light in the sky as the first of the sun's rays appears. And you can really go to town on these kind of things. Educator and role is another one where, you know, you can kind of start to say there's a swaying movement in the leaves and a human figure emerges. So everyone has a little bit of a different way of approaching that, but it's really just about thinking about the way that you're using your voice to illuminate the story. So that was one kind of workshop that we worked on. The second one is the Teacher's Compass. I've heard it called a few other things as well. I think we probably all use it quite a lot. The Teacher's Compass is 4 quadrants. So I think the first half of this script is in what we call quadrant 1. Quadrant 1 will be where it's entirely speculative. So, for instance, if you have an object, we just look at it and you don't see anything. You know, we allow children or we allow learners to just form their own decisions about it. We do it a lot in visual art. I think we're looking at a picture and you're just pulling out different things. What do you see? Really, what do you see? That's all you want to know. You don't want to ask them any questions that will guide them. So what do you see? Quadrant 2 is where you start to ask questions. So you're going to ask questions which might help them point into a particular direction. And quadrant 2 is on the second part of that page. Each of these episodes will go through each 4 quadrant. Quadrant 3 is when you start to give them some factual information. So this is an egg, or this is something, you can tell them what it is. And then quadrant 4 is when you start to give it context. So you start to think about how it might be used, or who might have used it, or where it fitted in time, or what was the purpose of it. So so 1 being purely speculative, what is it? 2, asking some questions that could lead to some answering. 3, giving them some facts, and then 4, what was the purpose, and giving and asking questions just to consolidate. So that's a really great kind of compass that each of these episodes followed the four dimensions. Okay. Before I launch into doing drama, do we want to pause and just I feel like I've done that very quickly, but are there any kind of questions or anything? What do you think, Monica?
Yeah, if anybody has a question, feel free to unmute yourself. It's a small enough group that you can ask questions now or later, or you can put them in the chat if you like.
So I'm just going to go through just a few. I'm going to do the ones that asterisks, so the Pa Harakiki, which is the opening scene to Harakiki, and then I'm going to go to Kaimahi Taonga. I'm probably not going to do the opening scene of Honui Night because it's quite similar to the other one, but then we'll go through the game of the second one, so the gamification. So let's start with the Pa Harakiki. I'm going to stand, and my camera sometimes does funny things, so hopefully it will follow me around the room, you'll see everything, but I can keep an eye on where I am, so hopefully it will be okay. Now, when we run these programs, we have a script in our hand for most of it, apart from the beginning. But the script is here for a reason. It was really important for these developers to make sure that there was consistency in all of our delivery. So even though we had many different people who were delivering, they also knew that there were going to be people in the future who were going to be delivering. So it was important for the people developing this program that the script was detailed enough that it would remain consistent, and also that people would stick to the script. So, I could learn it, but I'm not an actor. And so it's okay. It's okay for us to be holding the script. And I do explain that to children. I explain that we have worked with mana whenua, and it's important for them that their stories don't shift, because we all know that sometimes we shift stories. So it's important, and so that's why I'm holding the script and we read off it, and that's okay. Apart from the very beginning where we don't. So I'm going to stand up and move this chair. And we'll begin. Okay. So the opening scene. Our story begins long ago. It's in a place not too far from where we are right now. It's somewhere between here, which is Te Manawa Museum, and the sea. It's a long time ago, 300 years ago in fact. I want you to imagine you are outside, outdoors, surrounded in every direction by sharp spears of harakeke. There's a pink light in the sky as the first of the sun's rays appear over the hills. Picked out against the sky, sharp, pointed silhouettes of spear-like leaves can be seen, thousands of them in every direction. The air, which has been silent through the night, is gradually filling with the sounds of birds and insects. Now that's when we pause and I ask the students what they made of that. So that's really quadrant one. It's we've delivered something and we're asking them what they think of it. And we want them to know that we're somewhere close to here. So we're close to the Manawatu, somewhere between, they might have heard it somewhere between here and the sea. We want them to know that it's 300 years ago. I think I said that. We want them to know that they're outside and that they're in a swampy land surrounded by harakeke, spears. And it's nice when they know what time of day it is. So you might have picked up that there's a pink light in the sky, that you can hear the birds. So we clarify those. We clarify that with everyone to make sure they know. And once we've done that, which takes a bit of time and a bit of conversation, we like to ask them if there's anything they're wondering, you know, because what are you wondering? What are you wondering about? Okay. Right. There's a swaying movement in the leaves, and a human figure emerges. It's a young man, and he has a markway. It's a mussel shell. It's hanging on a cord around his neck. He's carrying something in his arms and moving carefully through the thick vegetation. How about I put this markway on, and just for a moment, I'm going to be this man, this young man. What do you think I was doing? Any ideas? This is what we would ask the students. And they say things like, okay, he's carrying something, or he's looking behind his shoulders, you know, maybe he's picking up a broom, or, you know, all sorts of things. I like to ask the question, you know, what are you thinking? They often say, what's his name? What's his name? Or how old is he? You know, who's he with? Where's he going? These kind of questions. So I kind of try and pull some curiousness from everyone. So what are you thinking? And from those questions and the things that they're wondering, I fill in my next section. So now, this time, when I put the markway on, this time I am going to speak. Now, obviously 300 years ago, this young man would have spoken in Te Rā Māori, but today I'm going to be speaking in English. Let's listen to what he says. Okay. I think I did it right. I've got enough. I've done it right. Yeah, enough. Oh gosh, it's heavy. Yeah, okay, great. Cool. Okay. Come on, everyone. Are you done? Did you do it? You've got enough? Let's go. Yeah, let's head back. They'll be waiting for us. Back at the kainga. We've got to go. And you can pepper that with other things, you know, if they need to know their name, you can kind of make it up, or who he's with, those kind of things. But the information we want to get over is that he's with other people, and he's heading back to the kainga. That he's thinking about the process, the way that he's done it. So we're thinking about tikanga, that he's been shown something. Yeah, so all of those things, we have a conversation, and then after that we just recap this. So this is the kind of the closing of the quadrant number 4, where we just recap after our conversation, where we say, while this is a story, it's based on real life and history. In the past, there really were huge areas of swampy land between where we are standing now and the sea. These swamp areas are full of harakeke. Harvesting Row was and is collective mahi, so this young man is not working alone. He's one of a group of rangatahi out harvesting Row, and the meaning of words Row and harakeke, that there is a tikanga gathering, so the time of day, weather, which parts of plant to cut, and what tool might he use? And go back to this. So, you know, this is really simple. It's just this one tool, this one little piece that can be used to transform me or anyone who's presenting this into this man. And that's the closing of episode 1. So episode 1 is about setting the scene. We're in a story. We're using these little dramatic tools to get into the story where we're 300 years ago, and we're thinking about this young man who's been shown what to do. I'm going to switch to the next episode, which is, so after that one we go outside and we look at some of the harakeke. So we look at the harakeke and so gathering the row, we look at harakeke and we show them how it's gathered. So that's actually done outside, just in our plain teaching voices. And then we come back in and then we do this really cool thing. So in this episode called Kaimahi Taonga, we're using this concept of mantle of the expert, which is one of the pedagogies that I showed you about this. So mantle of the expert is, I'm not an expert, probably some other people know more about it than I do, but from what I understand, it's placing the students in a place where they have knowledge and they have expertise, and you want to ask them about it. So it's placing them in a place where they are the experts, and it's a really great strategy. It's a really a good way of empowering them into learning things. So that's one pedagogy for this section. The other one is using 6 dimensions, which is another dramatic tool. So the 6 dimensions are where is the light coming from, where is it dark, where is the movement coming from, where is it still, where is the sound coming from, and where is it silent. So those are six ways that we can imagine a space by thinking about those dimensions. And we're going to use those 2 pedagogies in this next session. So you can go back big on me now if you want again, and I'll get into the next one. I'll put the marker down. So we're going to go back into the story. Remember the young man, the one we saw earlier, the one with the markoi? We saw how him and his whanaunga were gathering a row, the long leaves, from the pā harakeke, and now they're carrying their bundles back into their kāinga or their village. For this part, you are going to have the opportunity to be inside the story as well. You'll be representing the people back at the kāinga, other people from the young man's hapu. We need to remember the situation we're imagining is happening 300 years ago. So we're not stepping back into the story as ourselves, we're imagining that we're a hapu of rangatane. Let's call it ngātai mai. And I get everyone to say that. I won't get you to say it now though. It's still early morning, so still early morning. Where is the light coming from? Is it the sun? Where is it dark? One side of the wharenui. Okay, what's moving? Oh, sorry, I need to explain the place first. So we're taking a moment to look around and get clear about what the kāinga looks like. We're outside. Around us we can see palisades, tall fences. There are wharekune, small sleeping houses, pāwhakakai, food stores, and perhaps over here there are some people working. They're creating a hangi for later. So now, it's early morning. Where is the light coming from? The sun? Where is it dark? Oh, in the wharekune. What's still? What's moving? Are the people maybe making the hangis moving? What's still? The people sleeping or the palisades? Doesn't really matter what they say, it's just about them to help them get into the space. What can we hear? Oh, the birds. It's early in the morning, so there's birds. And where's the silence? Oh, the people sleeping. Maybe the people are kind of silent. Okay. So we're there in that space. We've arrived back. Now you are going to be the kaimahi, or the workers. You're people who are experienced in gathering and handling harakiki. You are the ones who sent that young man and his whanaunga out earlier to gather rau from the pā harakiki, and now you're waiting for them to return. Now let's find out what you, the kaimahi, are doing while the young ones have been out gathering the rau. All of these objects are made out of harakiki. See that? Some of them are completely made out of harakiki, and others just have parts of harakiki and other materials. At this stage, we ask everyone to look at these objects. So I'm not going to tell them what they are, but we're going to look at them. And I'm going to ask them to commit to one of these objects. They choose one of them. And we give them a little piece of card and a pencil, and they have to draw it. And by doing that, by giving that card and drawing it, then they commit to it. So without knowing what they are, I mean, most of them probably can guess what a lot of them are, but without knowing what they are necessarily, they're going to draw a picture of things, and that might take 5 minutes. We gather in all the pencils, and they've got their drawing in their hand. So they're now committed to that particular object. Okay. So then we go around. So if you have drawn this object, then we will know you as a maker of whareki, or mats. These were used for inside our wharepuni, or sleeping house, and wharenui, our meeting house. If this is the object that you were drawn, then your hands will be busy plaiting whenua. So if this is your object, then this is what you must do with your hand. And we get the students who've chosen the object to practice doing this with their hand. So they're plaiting whenua. Just a really simple action to do with their hand. Okay. So remember that off action. If this is your drawing, then you're preparing hanks of muka, or lengths of fibre, which can be used for many, many things within our kainga. Your hands will be grasping a patu muka, a pounding tool, and you'll be using it to soften the wet fibre. If this is your object, then you'll be holding a patu muka and a harakiki, and you'll be softening it like this. So again, a simple action for them to do. Okay, ask them to remember that one. If this is the tangala that you have made a picture of, you will be working on a taha whurua. It's a gourd, which will be filled with preserved food. If you're working on this one, then your hands will be used to bind the legs of the gourd. So you can see the harakiki. We're going to go around and pull, nice and tight. Around and pull, around and pull. So remember that action. And if you've drawn this one, then you are creating a hiaki, or a rain cloak. These are cloaks that we create for our people to wear in winter time. So when we step back into our story, your hands will be making all of these tasks like this. That is the action and how it goes. Everyone remember their actions? Okay. So now we all know what those kaimahi are working on. So as we step back into the story, when you're ready, you can get started doing your mahi using your hands. You don't need to add anything else, just focus on your hands and what you're doing. So at that point, I'm going to become the young man again, return hands. So, and I would say, and so with the day brightening outside, the kaimahi sat in silent concentration, hands busy with huka, plaiting, binding and pounding. And at this stage, there's a room full of children just busy with their hand doing the action. You know, it's quite magical. I'll hold the mākoi to represent the young man. I'm sure he'll want to have a look at what you kaimahi are working on. So I'll move slowly through your group, and you keep working, and I'm going to you show him what he's doing. So at that stage, all I do is I walk around with the mākoi and I ask questions like, have you been doing that for a long time? Gosh, did it take you a long time to learn it? And they all say, oh yes, yeah, I did take the ages. It's really hurting my hands. And, they come up with great things. So, this is a great example of placing them in a position where they're the experts and I'm asking them a question, which is it's quite a lovely place for children to be in. They're not often in that position, I think. So I walk around the room and I just ask some general questions and try and get them to participate in that way. Okay. And then I put my marker down, and in my narrative voice I say, and the kaimahi knew that the young people were ready. They could see this young man and the other tauira had done a good job of cutting the roe from the harakeke. Now it was time to teach him and the others how to prepare the roe and turn it into fibres to work with and to trade with. So that's most of that scene. But after that, we go into actually making some an object. So what we made is a rope. This is a very good example, actually, of a rope. I think this might be one that Warren made for us. But so from a single spear, a single row, we go through the process of splitting it up into evenly spaced strips and stripping it back and then plaiting it. They plait it on their toes. So they have to take their shoe off and put it on their toe and then they plait it. And this is a nice one. Sometimes they can join it. This one has been joint, but it depends. Often a lot of kids don't know how to plait. So a lot of the time they end up with just a very short one with things tied together. But they end up going home with something that they've made that's quite strong. It's a nice little kind of keepsake for them. So everyone gets to make one of those objects, which is really cool. Yeah. So those are the two sections I wanted to show you because I think that those two sections have some really great dramatic inquiry pedagogies which help with opening up these kind of imagination spaces to imagine, another world or another place. So. Yeah, that's a good. Sorry, I saw you just made a comment there, which I didn't quite read all, but.
I just made the comment that I've always liked the idea of students taking something tangible back with them. Yes. It just gives them a different kind of attachment to the concepts and the content they've been exposed to and the activities they did. So it's a great example.
Yeah, absolutely. And with harakeke, it's, as you know, because we have quite young students often, we had to, Warren came up with this, but it had to be something relatively simple because it's quite challenging working with harakeke a lot of ways. But that could take, just making one of those could take, 35 minutes. It's quite a chunk of time, but yeah, definitely it's worthwhile. And the whole room smells of harakeke, and they have a great time. So yes, they get to take it home, and then they take their drawing and their little their rope home as well. So yeah, it's really definitely a good thing. That program finishes with after they've made it, finishes with going and seeing some tangible objects. So at this point we've just seen these drawings, but then we go into the museum space and we see these actual objects in the museum space. So that's actually quite important as well, because it goes from it's a narrative, it's a story here, and then for them to go from that story into seeing them as in a real museum space is it's just adds another layer of understanding for them. So we have these 4 objects set up in Te Whenua, our iwi space at the moment for them to see them in real. The other part of that program, the trading game, it's a separate game that I'm not really going to go into now, but it's just a game where they get given different versions of these objects that have values assigned to them, and then they trade them for objects that they cannot get in this area. So for instance, we don't have pounamun, or we don't have argillite, and we don't have albatross bones. So all of the objects that they need, but they don't have here, they have to trade using just cards of these ones there. So that's just another facet of this game, which is a whole other story. Great.
Miriama just had a question. Sorry, Miriama, I just read it on the chat about whether you do you harakeke from your own pa harakeke?
Yeah, we do. So we have that stand which is the first picture we had, but there are actually quite a few other stands locally as well. And it's good for it. It needs to be harvested from. So yeah, it's definitely a good thing that we're using it. It got a bit neglected for a few years, so it's getting some love now, which is really lovely. So yeah, we're quite lucky. We've got quite a bit around. I mean, this area, I'm not sure where you're from, but this area used to be full of it. I mean, yeah, I think it was probably the biggest natural stand of harakeke in New Zealand. The Manatū Plains, it was huge. It's all been drained. And actually, at the end of this program, we show pictures of the harakeke industry, which was a big boom in the kind of late 1800s, where people came in and started harvesting it all to make rope. So though we're not thinking about that part, so we're focusing pre-colonisation, we just very quickly go through some pictures and talk about, in the context of this young man wondering about the future, and we show some pictures and black and white pictures and flick through, you know, the horses carrying these big stacks of harakeke and the industry and making ropes and making all these things, and then that industry subsequently falling over because of development of things like plastics and sailing ships no longer being around. And yeah, it can be quite emotional, I think, at the end, because you're just kind of suddenly jumping forward to something else. But then we like to bring it back to say that that harakeke is still being used. And you know, mostly by artisans and people with cultural practices now. So you know, that's still a really important resource. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question. Right, well, shall I go on? I don't know the time. It's 12 past 4. So before we just go into some last questions, there's one more thing I want to show you, which is the gamification part of Honua and I. So this is a different program, and I wanted to show you. I'll just check while I'm moving this easel out of the way, because yeah, gamification is always a kind of tool that's always quite fun, and you know, kids love it obviously, and we want to try and use it when we can. It's engaging. It's not always appropriate. It doesn't always work with gamification, because there's often differing outcomes with gamification. So this one works really well. So Honua and Naya is a story that has been passed down by ori, so by like lullaby or ori, for generations and generations. And Rangatane have a version of the story, but many other iwi also have versions of the story, and they have different versions, slightly different versions of the story. But the story that we are telling is a Rangatane version of the story, but amongst Haku, there are also slightly different versions of the story. And one of the learnings of this program is that that's okay. You know, there are different versions of the story, and you know, if you hear one story, that doesn't mean that that's the be all and end all. So that's part of the learning, was that there are different versions of the story. So in the instance of having a game which has an element of chance, meant that we could illustrate that point. And I'm just taking my shoes off so that I can dramatically roll out this mat, and hopefully the camera will follow me pretty soon. We have, as part of our story, is it going to come over here? I'll move it over and I will roll out the map. So as part of our narrative, we rolled out a lovely map like this. And I'm hoping that camera will eventually, I think last time I had to sit on the ground, didn't I? For it to follow me. I roll it out. I can just see the corner of it, can't we?
It will get there eventually.
Oh, yeah. If I sit down here and start speaking, then I think it might follow me. So I'll sit down here.
And it will add a bit of mystery to it.
So the story of Honua and I is that Honua and I, as a man, this is one of the resources that was made for us, which is, you might not be able to see it very well, but it's done by an artist called Liweti Arapiri, and he made a similar narrative, which is actually at the Palmerston North Airport. So So he's used these pictures in a number of ways. So this is a guy called Honu and he's on it's like a block thing. It's got tahi on the top, which is a piece which is used in our game. So I'll place it down there, and hopefully the camera will see. He lives in South Taranaki. So he lives in South Taranaki, and he has a wife. And one day his wife ran away with another man. Now his wife was called Waireka, and she is on this piece. And she runs away with this man here called, what's his name? Pitu, no, I can't remember his name. Anyway, she runs away with this man. And he is just an ordinary man. So the game goes, which you probably can't necessarily see on this board, but we have a big map of the coast of the Manawatu down here. So I've just rolled it out. There's green, which you can see over here, which is the land. These bits here are the awa, the rivers. And you can see some of the round circles. You might see some of the circles over here, which are places that they actually come all the way down here, where we can move our people. Okay. So we also have a die. So this is the die here, the dice. So that's an element of chance, which is how the story can change. And we get the kids to get into 4 groups. So the students are in 4 groups. One is controlling Honu and Naya. The other one is controlling Wairaka and Wiku. Wiku is the name of the guy. It's come back to me now. And another group is holding this dice. So they're the element of chance. And the third group is like a soundtrack. So they have some words to say every time they get to an awa. So one of the important parts of this story, the most important part really, is that as Honu travels down the coast, he names the awa. So it's a story that's passed down so that we remember the names of the awa on the coast. So Wairaka and Wiku start further down the coast, and Honu sets off chase. So we roll the die. The die will have either you can move 2 places. So you know they have the green X where you move 2 places. You can have a blue one, which means you advance to the next river, or you have a red. It looks like a bomb. It's a bomb, but it's actually a gourd, which means you stop and have kai. So you're having a rest at one place. So we go. It's a very simple game where you throw the die and you're moving forward. And the aim of the game is that Honu wants to try and catch up to Wairaka and Wiku. They don't usually catch up. What happens is that they travel down to the coast and they end up at what's on the map, just part of Kapiti Island. Actually, you can see it just in the corner now, that red dot. So this is Kapiti Island. It's quite stylised. And the red dot down there is Pukurua Bay. Now, what happens is that sometimes Honu and I will catch up with Waireka. And that's okay. That's what happens in the story. At that stage, you just say, oh, okay, so he put up with them. What do you think might happen? Often, Waireka will make it all the way to the red dot. Okay. So, but at the closing of the story is that in our particular version of the story, which is the version that Rangatane tells, is that eventually Honu always catches up with Wairaka and Wiku. And when he catches up with her, with his wife, he asks her to collect water from the ocean over and over again until she becomes tired. And as she goes out, he turns her, he uses his superpower, because he has a superpower, and he turns her into a stone. And we take the piece away and we put the stone down on the red dot. And that stone is seen today in Pukurua Bay, and it's called Wairaka. So she's there still. Now, as we've been travelling down the coast, we have symbols in the river, and they correspond to sounds, which we mentioned earlier, and then those sounds correspond to the names of the awa. So after we played this game, we go through what those sounds are and what they mean. So, yeah, it's really just an example of a way that we've used gamification in a meaningful way, because it helps to illustrate some of the learning. So some of the learning being that stories are not always the same. They can differ, and I think that's a really great tool. There's a bunch of other stuff in here as well, but I think time is running out. So, so I think that yeah, I think I'll probably leave that one there for now, and perhaps we can move over to some questions.
Yeah, I've just quickly popped the slide up with the curriculum links as well. Not to preempt any questions, but I thought it might be quite nice if you wanted to talk about that as well.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so, you know, as at the beginning I said, this was all developed in the wake of this Aotearoa New Zealand Histories curriculum, which came out, and these programs just, they had heaps of things, especially that training game that's quite explicit. There's, yeah, many different ways that hits the curriculum, so it's, yeah, it's pretty good, and we're pretty familiar with this curriculum now, and hopefully it sticks around for a bit longer. Yeah, so that's all I need to say about that, really.
Feel free to unmute or to share some questions in the chat, because everybody knows I always have questions. And I've been really intrigued with this idea, Kirsty, of the script, of sticking to the script. That seems so hard when you're not an actor. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, the importance of that?
Yeah, so it's hard in lots of ways. I think it's hard because most of us, if you teach, you're used to ad-libbing a lot, or you're used to doing things your own way. And you know, I was involved in the development of this, so I understood why everything is done a certain way. There were, you know, there were conversations about every little sentence and why things are done a certain way. So I can understand, but I've been here for a while now, and there's been new people come on board, and I've had to kind of show them the script. And we have had people who have decided that they're going to do it a different way, you know, and you know, this way works. This way works. It helps. It means you don't miss things out. You know, sometimes it's quite easy to just forget certain sections. It means the structure is always the same. It means that it's consistent. Yeah, as far as just not being an actor, I don't know. Maybe some people struggle more with that than me. The hardest bit is remembering where you are, I think, in the script. And you know, I think I did that just before, didn't I? I went into something without, but you just, you know, it's not a tough audience usually. It's but it's definitely a learning curve.
And you did mention something to me about a teacher's feedback about the fact that you guys were sticking to the same script and the experiences between different classes. Do you remember what I mean?
Yeah, one of my colleagues decided to show the objects earlier. So they went into the museum space and they drew from the objects rather than drawing from the pictures. And the teacher had come for a second round in the group, and they had said, oh, well, you know, we did that, can we do that again, because it was really good. And, you know, I knew there's a reason that we do it this way. There's a reason that we keep everything in this narrative. So we work from these pictures, and you know, they're a mystery first. You don't necessarily know what they are, and there's a reason that we do that, so you slowly unlock their meaning. So I said, oh, look, I'm going to stick to the original way. And then afterwards I asked him, how was that? And he said, yeah, no, that actually worked. That was much better. So, you know, that was a really great kind of reassurance. These kind of pedagogies are, you know, it's baked into the script, and they work because we were working with people who were experts and knew what to do. You know? So yeah, it works really well. Yeah.
Kia ora, Kirsty. Miriam, lovely to hear your kōrero. I'm from Pātaka, so we've got our connection with Wairaka being close to Pukeroa Bay.
Yeah.
It's very, it's awesome to hear a rangitane version of the story, and we have our own Wairaka or Vairaka po in our spine at the moment, which we're kind of gathering stories about, so very cool to hear that. Just had a partai around, what's your kind of class sizes and time frame like when you're working with groups?
Yeah, good question. So we will take a class, so a class of up to 30 to do either of these programs. And the Harakiki program will take about 2.5 hours.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so
it's longer because I had like 2 different art kind of components.
Yeah, it takes a while. So there is a training game as well, and so what we would do is we would do the whole section with the making, and then they'd have lunch, and then they could do the trading game afterwards. The trading game, which is just where they use the cards to trade and understand how they travel around and trade objects, might take an hour. But the Honu and I is an hour. It doesn't take too long. It kind of depends. It depends on the kids. It depends on how long the game takes. But I mean, we book them in for about an hour and a half, but we usually finish it early. Yeah. So and the thing about the Honu and I program is it's really just the resources that we have in this room. Well, just we don't use the museum space. Harakiki we travel into the museum space and we look at objects and we look at the Harakiki. So we have to do that on site. Honu and I we could take out and do anywhere. So that's kind of, it's a good thing. It's a good thing, but it's sometimes also, it's nice to get into the museum space. So pros and cons. But I've done it with adults too. So I've actually gone out to a group at the hospital, some social workers who wanted to do a PD, and I did it with adults, and they loved it too. It was great for them too. So it works. Yeah.
Is there anything else you would either like to ask? I mean, Danny, you're part of this, so you might still have questions, I don't know. Or is there anything else you would like to add? We've got about 4 minutes before we're gonna close, so our timing is impeccable, Kirsty.
Oh, great. Good, it went really quickly.
Yeah. I assume you are happy if people reach out to you at Te Manawa if they've got questions about this? Sure, yeah. That would be fabulous. I put the Te Manawa website address in the chat a little bit earlier. And I'm super excited. Like many of you know, I'm not currently in the museum. I'm going like, I want to go to the museum. I want to try this out. And I am also so excited about this, being not Maori, but also being Tauiwi, and having the opportunity to see how you can tell culturally significant stories in a really respectful way and in a culturally safe way is actually really, really exciting, because we know we have our kaimahi that whakapapa back to mana whenua, but we also have many other kaimahi in our museums who don't. And it would be so great if those kind of approaches could help for stories to be told in the right kind of way.
Yeah, certainly.
Awesome, Whana. Well, I will take us over to just a few of the finishing slides, not without saying thank you so much, Kirsty. So inspirational and so interesting the way you presented this. Whana, we had a little practice beforehand when we switch off the screen and look, so we can see Kirsty better than at other times, but it's been super exciting, and I almost forgot sometimes to go back because I was just so fascinated by your story. So thank you once again. It's been really, really awesome to have you here. And those of us who missed the live session or want to come back to it, the recording will be uploaded to the website probably within the next week or so. We're volunteers, so we're trying to fit it in where we can. Now, I'll put the slide up in here. Join us next month for our drop-in session Christmas edition. It won't be until Thursday, the 18th of December, so it's quite late in December, but we know everybody is super busy with things going on before Christmas. Please do come and join us. Talking about how 2025 worked for you, highlights, challenges, what you're putting off to next year. But before we get to that, there is also a question on Facebook at the moment. We are actually looking at holding a one-day conference in 2026. It will be for educators and public programmers working in the wider GLAM sector, culture and heritage sector. It will be held in person with virtual streaming. So parallel, we are looking at the first quarter of 2026, so will be free to attend. which will be amazing. As the committee, we would love to have your feedback when you would like that to happen. Suggestions we've put up so far is March or April, and we would also love to know how many people might attend online or in person. So if you are on Facebook, please come to the Te Pūtiaki Manatāonga group and then have a look at that question. I'm just quickly gonna see if I can find the link and put it in the chat so that everybody can see that on here. Would be really, really awesome to know. Well, it is 4:30 whānau. Thank you once again, Kirsty. Thanks everybody for coming along. Let's finish off with karakia. Kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa pōna mo te moana. Ai hua rahi ma tātou I te rangi nei. Aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou I a tātou katoa. Oye, tai ki e. Kia ora. Thanks so much for coming.
Awesome. Nā mihi, ka kite.
Tōna rā.
All right, we did it.
We did it.